Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. I am Clinton Reynolds and we'll be taking your calls immediately because for this segment we just want to discuss it with you. That is the St. Lucia Jazz Festival 2012. Of course, the festival is 21 years old and this is something to celebrate. However, how much can we celebrate when it seems that the whole purpose of the Jazz Festival has been lost on some of us? So many artists that we have booked for the shows have cancelled over the years, and we have been forced to put in hasty replacements. The latest, of course, happening for this year's Jazz Festival when our headliner, Lionel Richie, someone whose music that I enjoy tremendously, decided to cancel last week or the week before because he got a better gig. Is that fair to us? I don't know. And to the patrons who have made plans to come be part of St. Lucia Jazz 2012, the biggest party on St. Lucia as it is dubbed. Now we are left with Diana Ross and Tony Braxton to headline our main stage. But don't forget that we have other artists as well. Our very own Ronald Boo Hinkson, a man who has done so well in music, not only on St. Lucia but around the world, and he's I dare say better respected outside of St. Lucia rather than on St. Lucia. We also have Luther Francois, another musical virtuoso who performs a lot of this Franco jazz pieces and works with a number of ensembles around the world, especially in those French territories. So he'll be on there as well. But are we being taken for a ride by those big artists who decide, well, you know, yes, we will sign up for jazz just in case something bigger does not come up, and then if something big presents itself, then we can always say, you know what, it's unfortunate, I'm sorry, but I have to cancel. Another development, news from the St. Lucia Tourist Board, that the Carolee Jazz has been cancelled as well. Not exactly certain as to why, but this is the latest development happening with St. Lucia Jazz. Started 21 years ago, as I mentioned earlier. Very long time, and it has had a good run. We have had a good partnership with BET and BET on Jazz, but that might have led to our downfall as well, because with BET you had most of the control with that organization, and we were just piggybacking as a small nation coming into a festival that we had not much skill or experience in administering, so we had to depend on a more established institution like that television station to carry us through. Your thoughts on St. Lucia Jazz? We're taking your calls on Newsmaker Live as we go for the next 10 minutes discussing the lineup and also discussing the cancellation, the major cancellation for this year's program, losing Lionel Richie with all his pop hits, all his R&B hits of the 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s, some of them just sounding in my ear as I speak on this issue. We have our first caller. Please go ahead. Good evening, caller, with your contribution. Oh, we have lost that call. We seem to be losing some calls this evening, but the number is on your screen. If you just want to contribute, participate in this discussion, you can go ahead and call. Also on the lineup for St. Lucia Jazz, Joshua Redman, he's a saxophonist. As I mentioned, Ronald Boo Hinkson, Luther Francois, Mario Canage, Ziggy Marley, the son of the great reggae icon Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley. We also have the Gypsy Kings, the Derek Yard Project. They're also local, trying something new this year for St. Lucia Jazz. Gospel being blended in there. Kirk Franklin will be here for St. Lucia Jazz as well. and so will Kerry Hilson and Alison Marquis. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, I don't know if explanation have been given so far, but to me, using the word jazz and most of the artists who headline the festival, to me they're not jazz singers. So I don't know if it's just a misleading title that we're using, or if somewhere down the line we went from jazz into pop, R&B, everything else as the headline.
Well, I mean, on that issue, I think what it is, the people who listen to jazz, you have a very small and a specialized group who enjoy hardcore jazz. And to carry a festival like that, it would be almost impossible to have only jazz artists, because you would not have so many people flooding into St. Lucia to listen to jazz.
Hence,
and hence, you know,
maybe we should change the name to not jazz festival, maybe just a music festival, because if the name is based on a minority of listeners, then why don't we please the majority and name it something that will that the majority could identify with? Because to me, if I'm a tourist from overseas and I'm saying there's an advert saying St. Lucia Jazz Festival, and let's say we have a group and we're diehard jazz fans, and when we get down here, we see reggae artists, calypso artists, all different types, and probably one or two jazz, then it's almost misleading calling it a jazz festival. Don't you think so?
I couldn't agree more, caller, because that is my point. I think that over the last 21 years, the festival has evolved, and there is very little jazz that takes place within the jazz festival. So why keep on calling it? And it speaks to our inability to move and to change with times. You know, we're more like the Titanic than a pirogue. We can't maneuver as quickly. You know, we have to go in big circles to make a turn. You know, so I have the same issue with the St. Lucia Jazz Festival, and I think that it is high time that the organizers of the event, which is the St. Lucia Tourist Board, revisits the festival and gives it the appropriate name. If it is, as you said, a music festival, just a music festival, or a pop festival, or as it has descended into an oldie goldies festival, then we can do that. You know, when you're talking about Diana Ross and Tony Braxton headlining. When was the last time these people produced a hit? It was not in the new millennium, as far as I can remember.
It's almost like we're taking the dead and we're bringing them to life in St. Lucia.
Well, I made that point in the press club last Sunday. You know, it's like a musical resurrection or resuscitation. That's what that festival has descended into. But I'm sure the organizers would want to disagree, and hopefully next week or during the festival itself, we can get one or two on the program to discuss it in more detail. We'll not be as subjective, but we'll have another side to it so we can see both sides of that coin. Okay. But I do thank you for calling.
One more point. Sure. Are you aware that Lionel Richie just released a new album and it went to like #1?
I heard that he was moving more into country. Now country is where the money is.
It's a country album, but he's literally probably in demand now because he went up to like #1, knocking Adele,
right,
knocking
Adele.
her off bumping her one down. So it's like he's in more demand now. So probably that's what's happened right now. Somebody else booked him. So
yeah,
and
not probably, but obviously he'll be making more money, and that is why he has decided to go for the more lucrative deal. And I don't want to say screw on TV, but pretty much that's what he has done to us.
But is it a favor he's doing us by coming there, or don't they have a contract signed?
There are contracts signed, and I inquired about that some time ago when someone else canceled. It was a few years ago, and I asked that of a tourist board official, and the person was saying, well, you know, you don't really want to rock the boat. I mean, what can you do?
Oh,
They have a
please.
contract, but then you don't want to scare others from coming if you go
What?
and you pursue that person for breaking the contract, which was quite ridiculous to me.
Yeah,
And that is why people can decide to screw us over and say, you know what, I have a more lucrative deal. I can't come to your festival. I'll go elsewhere.
Wow.
It's terrible.
We're like little beggars.
Yeah, and we're paying to
paying
beg.
and we're begging.
I don't know. It's
serve me.
amazing. It's amazing.
All right.
Thank you very much for your contribution, and yeah, very interesting take on our festival from this caller. Just to round up what is happening, as I said, Alison Markey will be performing, as well as Andy Narell, Yu Masakela, who has been here a few times, West People IT. This is a Haitian group, Melanie Fiona, and opening up on Monday, Fian Lyons, Busy Signal, Teddyson John, he's a local, and Bungie Garland. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, what we're saying again, I see that again. See, like the STEP program, we have to send them out and plant the fruit for us. Agriculture is one of the major things. Because I listened to my agriculture minister, and
sorry to interject here, my friend, but we're discussing
agriculture and everything. Hello, listen to me.
We're discussing jazz, and before that we were discussing the NCF. I think this is the second time this person has called, and you make a good point. It's just that this is not the right time for this good point, saying that we can put the people who are involved in STEP, or some people who are involved in STEP, into the agricultural sector to beef up this industry and to resurrect our agriculture. But as I said, we're discussing jazz and not agriculture this evening. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, that's a nice program you guys have there. All that Nana and Richie come down. We have Tennessee John, we have Bo Henson, we have all the our local artists. I know that our problem, the guys have money, so it's okay. We have to deal with our local artists, my friend, and that's my comments. Good night. Have a blessed
Thank
night.
you very much. Now, have we reached a point, and that's another question, where our local artists can carry a show that is organized, that, you know, as much money is pumped into? Because the tourist board spends a whole lot of money organizing the St. Lucia Jazz Festival, and a lot of that money is not seen by our locals. Of course, Ronald Buhingston raised the stink last year because of the contract that they were requiring him to sign, which did not reflect what he was going to do, which did not reflect the work that he was expected to do during the Jazz Festival last year. And as a result, he pulled out of the festival on a matter of principle, and he's back this year because that situation has been resolved, you know. And the point that he was making last year, that the things that the expectations and the requirements for foreign artists are different than local artists, and probably it's because local artists, or most local artists, accept, you know, what is given to them without question, because they feel that, you know, they're being done a favor by being given an invitation to be on the lineup. But I guess Boo Hinkson told them differently, and the approach would have been different for this year. We have another call. Please go ahead with your contribution, caller. Thanks for calling. Good evening. Hello. Well, that person doesn't seem to be hearing me. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Hello? Okay. All right. We don't seem to have that call. Well, as we have been discussing, you know, the main stage performers, Diana Ross and Tony Braxton, although recently